To the DoorGrow Show. If you are a property management entrepreneur that wants to add doors, make a difference, increase revenue, help others, impact lives, and you are interested in growing in business and life, and you are open to doing things a bit differently, then you are a DoorGrow hacker. DoorGrow hackers love the opportunities, daily variety, unique challenges, and freedom that property management brings. Many in real estate think you're crazy for doing it. You think they're crazy for not, because you realize that property management is the ultimate high trust gateway to real estate deals, relationships, and residual income. At DoorGrow, we are on a mission to transform property management business owners and their businesses. We want to transform the industry, eliminate the BS, build awareness, change perception, expand the market, and help the best property management entrepreneurs win. I'm your host, property management growth expert, Jason Hull, the founder and CEO of DoorGrow. Now, let's get into the show. All right. And so today, what we're going to be talking about is a tool that I use to look at personality types. Sometimes some people might view this as just looking at like the equivalent of looking at tea leaves, but we're going to be talking about Myers Briggs and Myers Briggs assessments. So, what is Myers Briggs? So, Myers Briggs is a lens through which you can look at certain personality types. And in Myers Briggs, there are 16 personality types that exist. And a really great website you can go to do this testing is 16, 1, and then the digit 6. So digits 16 personalities.com. So 16personalities.com. So if you go to this website, you can then take their assessment for free, or have people on your team or people that you're hiring take this assessment for free. At the end of it, it will ask, do you want these results emailed to you? Have them say yes, plug in their email address. They will get the email results, have them forward those results to you, or copy the link from that email and give that to you. That shows their results. It's important because then you can see the ratio, the percentage amount on each attribute. There's 4 attributes to understand in Myers-Briggs. 16 personalities added a 5th attribute, so to speak, but there's 4 main attributes. And so I'm going to teach you quickly on this, recording, how to quickly, rapidly type somebody in Myers-Briggs so that you can get clear on how they show up in this world and what they're like. Now, there's a lot of people that would argue that personality is not always static. Personality is not like always defined, and that you can have multiple personalities. Todd Herman has a great book on that subject, which is about how he helps celebrity athletes and other celebrities come up with or create alternate egos. And I believe the book's called The Alter Ego Effect. Really cool book, really cool topic. So I highly recommend you check it out. I got to meet Todd in person, hear him speak in person at one of the masterminds I'm involved in as a student, and not our mastermind as a student, because I'm also a student. And it was really cool to meet him, ask him questions, and get clarity on that. And so it's worth checking out. But people have a main sort of way that they show up in the world, and that's probably their primary sort of personality type. And getting people to operate outside of that, there's some friction, there's some challenge. And so one of the biggest, most important things to look at in hiring is personality fit. I've spoken about this on some lives and some events before, but really quickly, there are 3 fits you need when hiring. Personality fit is one of them, culture fit is another, and skill fit. Most people hire based on skill fit alone. Like, can they do this job, or can I teach them to do this job? But more importantly is personality fit. Personality fit dictates whether or not they will naturally be good at this job, or whether you're going to have to micromanage them, push them, and constantly, overcome friction in relation to doing the job, right? Somebody's personality, if they're really introverted and shy and don't like talking to people, might not be a great salesperson. For example, somebody in customer service, if you're putting somebody into customer service, but they're really cold, analytical, and harsh in the way that they do things, they might be terrible at customer service, but maybe they make an awesome operations person, right? And so we want to make sure that we're clear on the personality that would be a good fit for a particular role, so that when hiring, we can identify, are these people probably going to be a natural personality fit? The other is cultural fit. Cultural fit, we will not get into on this conversation, but it's the most important of the three fits. And that's whether or not you will be able to trust them in the long run, because whether or not they share your values and that sort of thing. So let's talk about Myers Briggs and how it can help you identify personality fit. You may want to type yourself. So let's go through and type you right now. So grab a pen or a paper or just something and write down there are four main attributes. So the first attribute you need to figure out is, are you an extrovert or an introvert? This is usually pretty obvious for most people. You can just ask people, or you can just ask yourself, if you know this person, are they an extrovert or an introvert? Am I an extrovert or an introvert? The main question I like to ask to figure out if somebody's an extrovert or an introvert is, do you get momentum and excitement from being around people? Or do you get momentum and need to recharge? Do you get recharged or more energy by being around people? Or do you need to be away from people in order to feel like yourself and to recharge? And where do you like spending most of your time? Right. So some people are ambiverts. I'm an ambivert. In Myers Briggs, I tend to show up as an actual extrovert, but I have a lot of introverted tendencies. So, um, so that's important to figure out, like, which one are they? Because for example, I'm an ENTP typically is how I show up. INTPs, from the INTPs that I've known, are quite more dramatically introverted. ENTPs are the most extroverted of all of the E types in Myers Briggs, which is half of the 16 personality types. They are the most introverted of all of the extroverted types. So a lot of times they might show up on a test as an INTP, but INTPs, I find, are the most introverted of the introverted types, and they are extreme introverts, and they can go weeks without human contact, and they're totally fine with that. A big differentiator there, if you're like me, confused about INTP or ENTP, like I have been in the past, you know, are you charismatic and outgoing? You are probably not an an INTP. You're probably not an extreme introvert. You're probably not super introverted if you have charisma and personality. I find INTPs a lot of times are pretty deadpan, dry, and they're quite brilliant. And anyway, we won't go into every single type, but I'll throw examples out throughout the process here. So mark whether you're an E or an I. I show up more as an E, but a lot of people might categorize me as an I. So I get recharged by having some time alone, but I need time around people. So I get that extroverted trait by connecting with clients, coaching clients. I like being on the stage as I am right now, so to speak, sharing ideas with others and benefiting other people. Extroverted trait. All right. So the next would be whether you are an intuitive or a sensor. So they categorize that letter instead of an E or an I. That next letter is an N for intuitive. They use the second letter. I know it's confusing, but we've already used I in the first set, so they didn't want to use it again. So it's an N for intuitive, or S for a sensor. So, so how do we categorize these? So in general, my big question or differentiator that I'll ask between these is, are you usually focused on high level theory, theoretical, big picture, which means you're more of an intuitive, or are you focused on more grounded, practical, real world reality and your physical senses? So I find sensors are those that to like things to be tactile, like they can touch them. They can see real results. A lot of times sensors gravitate towards manual labor or doing physical things where they can see physical, tangible, real world results. A lot of sensors end up in careers or positions where they are doing um, really grounded real world work. It could be like policemen, firefighters, plumbers, contractors, stuff like that. A lot of them are more on the sensor category. People that do physical art or do physical things, people that do like tiling floors, or people that enjoy building statues or creating things like those, a lot of times can be sensors. They're very focused on their physical senses of touch, taste, smell, sight, etc. Whereas intuitives go in a lot of times are focused on theoretical, big pictures, big ideas, and thinking. And I'll point out that there's no good or bad personality types necessarily. They're all needed. They're all good and useful in different things, right? So, are you an intuitive or a sensor? So, the next category after intuitive or sensor, another thing I look at with intuitive or sensors, I like to ask, what kind of TV shows are you into? Are you into shows that are very focused on, you know, grounded practical things like crime dramas and historical period pieces and stuff like that, sensor? Or are you focused more on, do you like the intuitive type of stuff, which could be more, um, sometimes more sci-fi or more fantasy based, or some of these kind of things where you're getting exposed to potential ideas and big picture things. That might relate to the last attribute a little bit too. So that's could be a red herring, but we'll get to that. The next major attribute would be thinker versus feeler. This is usually pretty obvious for most people. So, and the way that you want to look at this, everybody is a feeler to some degree, and everybody is a thinker to some degree. A lot of times feelers mistakenly think they're thinkers because they tend to overthink things. They ruminate things, they get stuck on things in their head because they're not really good at logical analytical thinking. They're feelers. And so they just overthink everything, like how is this going to impact everybody else from an emotional standpoint. So that does not mean you are a thinker, that means you are a feeler. Thinkers usually are very quick in their thinking and they approach things logically first. If you approach things from a feeling standpoint first, then you are probably more of a feeler. So if there's a problem and you're looking at this problem, would you use logic and reason first, or would you try and explore things emotionally, make sure people are okay? So another example I will give is if you saw somebody crying on a train that you were on, or on a bus you were on, or in a public place that you were at, and they were crying, would you naturally think, I'm going to kind of give them their space and let them deal with their stuff? Or do you feel a natural need to immediately reach out and connect and maybe even touch them to communicate, like, are you okay? And can I help you with anything? Thinker versus feeler, right? So, what is your go to? Me, I'm more of a thinker. I'm sure many of you could guess, more on the analytical, logical side. I approach things through logic first. One other thing you can look at is a lot of times thinkers, when they are not really good at processing emotion or experiencing emotion and don't want to feel negative emotion. And so they've gotten really good as a strategy of leveraging their logic and reason to avoid uncomfortable feelings in the future. So they're when they experience something uncomfortable or painful emotionally, their go-to is think, how can I avoid feeling this ever again in the future? And how do I solve this as quick as possible? And how do I stop feeling this as soon as possible? Whereas feelers know that the most effective strategy is to feel that fully, feel through it, because the only thing you logically can do with a feeling is to feel it. And once you've fully felt it, it no longer controls you. You can avoid a feeling indefinitely, and it can constantly be affecting you for years and years to come. Is it can be a challenge for thinkers. Whereas if you fully feel through something, you cannot feel a feeling forever. You can't feel something forever. You'll eventually just kind of get numb to it or get comfortable with it or get used to it or have kind of processed it and worked through it. And then you can approach it logically and say, all right, how can I view this in a healthy way? What good came from this? What could I get from that? And go through maybe a positive focus exercise, so to speak. So, why is this positive, right? So thinker versus feeler. So which one are you? Do you approach things through logic and reason first, or do you approach things through feelings first? Neither of these are right or wrong. We need both. I like to bring feelers in for things where it's customer service, or it's relating to clients, or it's community managers or client success managers, or roles where we need somebody to love on our clients and make them feel good. Thinkers, operators, logical roles, things like that. So we want thinkers. So moving beyond that, we get into the last of the four attributes, which is perceiving versus judging. So, this is how you approach the observable world and how you approach learning and how you approach the world around you in your thinking and decision making. Perceiving versus judging. So, a lot of people get really judgmental about the word judging and they're like, I'm not judging, I'm not judgmental. That's not what that means. So, and perceiving, a lot of people think, well, I want to be perceiving. So, let me explain this and then it'll be very clear to you which one you are. So, people that are P's that are perceiving, I find to be very creative. They like to pull in lots of ideas from lots of sources. They're very open minded, but they're a bit chaotic and they tend to thrive effectively in chaotic environments. But they live a lot of times in chaos. They have a messy desk, as do I right now. It's a bit messy. You can see my bookshelf is a bit crazy, right? So these are perceivers. They're really good at pulling in lots of ideas. And this is the advantage I have for my clients is I can pull in lots of ideas and create new ideas out of those ideas. And that's where the brilliance and genius comes out in these P's and how I'm able to benefit clients and help them see things they couldn't see on their own or didn't see otherwise. And that's how we come up with new ideas in really ingenious acquisition strategies and growth strategies and things that are very counterintuitive to what they've been taught sometimes. And this is because P's can see around the corner. They can see the bigger picture. They can see ideas that J's just cannot see. The problem with P's, though, is sometimes they're a little too open minded. So open minded, they get diluted and distracted by too many different ideas. Sometimes P's are very disorganized. They need support from their team members, from people that are J's. So my assistant is a J. They handle my schedule. They handle calendars. They like that kind of stuff. They like checklists and spreadsheets. J's judging have a box. They have a lens through which they view the world. Anything outside of that box, when people say, live outside the box, they're talking to J's. These are P's talking to J's. J's say, this box keeps me safe. This box keeps the world moving forward. Everything outside of that, like woo-woo stuff and maybe even Myers Briggs and aliens and conspiracy theories and all this stuff is complete bullshit, is BS, and is a waste of my time. So anything outside of my current worldview is a waste of my time and is not effective unless you can convince me logically otherwise. I'm not going to waste time exploring all of this other stuff and looking at all this other stuff. This is what is necessary and needed, right? And so J's are those that tend to move businesses forward as operators, as people that get stuff done. They are really good at calendars, spreadsheets, meticulous details, stuff like that, because they will make a quick judgment and throw out anything that does not fit. Whereas P's put everything on the shelf, look at the big picture, and come up with some new ideas in putting these different Lego pieces together. And they build really cool shit, right? They build really cool stuff. So Jays, though, are really brilliant at cutting out the fluff, the crap, getting to the meat of the thing, getting to the point, and moving things forward. And that judging box protects the business and protects people and creates really good boundaries and moves things forward. So we need both. So are you perceiving or are you judging? Right. So, when usually if you need an operations person, you need a really good assistant. I do not recommend that they're a P typically. Some of you may, as entrepreneurs, may be a P or perceiving, but if you are a J, will tend to want an assistant that is also a J. And if you are a P, you will tend to need an assistant that is a J, right? So let's talk about some different personality types. I don't have all 16 listed in front of me, but let's talk about some different types, right? So ENTPs like myself are often called the debater personality type. They're not really well liked a lot of times because they enjoy the friction and the conflict of debate. I love being wrong and I love being right. Like either one is fine for me because either way I win and I learn. And that open-mindedness and being a thinker and being having that extroverted intuition, which is the EN, allows me to do really creative stuff. And I'm generally naturally good at most things that I apply to. I don't, though, like to finish things. I love to start ideas, come up with creative ideas, and I have an entire mechanism and machine and team that I've creatively built around me that support me in getting stuff done. So having operators, having fulfillment team members, having client success managers, having sales and marketing manager, like I have a whole executive team, and then I have layers underneath some of them, right? So now, what are some good roles for, let's say, operations, right? So operations, so Sarah, who is the operator on my team and also my fiance, and is beautiful and who I love. She is an INTJ, and generally is how she shows up on most tests. She is, very introverted a lot of times. She can turn on the charm when she needs to, but she likes having a lot of space and a lot of time to herself. Introverted intuition. So a lot of really intuitive aspects to her. She just seems to know things. Her unconscious figures things out that she doesn't even consciously know sometimes. She's like, I feel like we're losing money somewhere here and I don't see it yet, but I just know something's off. And she's always right, like almost always right. INTJs love being right. They're almost always right, but they are a little rigid because of that J, so they can't see creatively around certain ideas. And so the debater ENTPs sometimes are really good at helping expose them to some new ideas and beating them in the debate situation. But they're great debaters, and they love being right and they hate being wrong. And they're sometimes very Spock-like if you're a Star Trek reference, but they can become so logical and sometimes so cold that emotionally they will hurt people around them and hurt people from a feeling standpoint, because they are thinkers. They are logical, analytical, intuitive thinkers, and they are J's. I find INTJs also really tend to always love animals, sometimes pretty often more than people. More than people. People drive them crazy because people are unreliable. People do make bad decisions and dumb decisions. They don't just do what they're supposed to do. INTJs are brilliant strategists. They make great operators. So other roles, we've got the ENTJ. They're kind of the entrepreneur type. They sort of have the benefits of both of these personality types, and they're usually viewed as the entrepreneur. Very enterprising. They're good at scaling things. They can sell very well. They're logical thinkers, intuitive, extroverted, and they're J's. So they make really great business owners, entrepreneurs, salespeople, and they can grow and scale things effectively. They're not usually as good with sometimes IP, like intellectual property, or coming up with new ideas or creating new ideas, but they're great at taking good ideas and scaling and building these things out in a lot of situations. But they may also have really good ideas. So it just depends. So because of their drive and their tenacity and their ability to figure things out, a lot of times they are pretty creative and they can gather really good ideas and put things together. But the J usually limits their creativity in that area, but they can recognize a good idea when they see one, right? So ENTJs can be very effective entrepreneurs. Other types of entrepreneurs that I'll see besides ENTP and ENTJs, I'll see ENFP. ENFPs are very interesting type of personality types. They are also quite introverted on the extroverted scale of the E types, but they love people. They like to analyze people. They like to figure people out. ENFPs are viewed almost as childlike or flirtatious by people when they're just trying to be friendly. And they're very friendly, but they come across very flirty with a lot of people. People always perceive them as flirts. They're great with other people. They love figuring out personality types. They love this kind of stuff. I learned this initially from and was exposed to Myers Briggs by an ENFP, and they knew all the different types. They understood people. ENFPs love freedom and creativity. They don't have that J. They're feelers that are perceiving. They have F and P, and they're intuitives, and they're extroverted. So they do not want to be corralled. They're not great in 9-to-5 job situations, sitting behind a desk in a cubicle. They need to be out. They need to be creativity. They need different environments. So ENFPs, a lot of bartenders are ENFPs because they get to connect with a lot of people. It's always different. They can set weird schedules and different schedules. A lot of actors and actresses might be sometimes ENFPs. You get a lot of flight attendants that might be ENFPs. You get a lot of hairdressers. lots of connecting with people or beauty salons or things like this, ENFPs, and there's also a lot of real estate agents. I believe ENFPs are just love and sunshine. My mother was is an ENFP, and I believe, she was a real estate agent, and people just love her. She's like everybody's mom and connects with everybody, and she understands people, and she's really sharp, right? ENFPs are also really, really almost religious. They have a deep spiritual sort of, belief set internally, whether they're part of a religion or not. They have really deep beliefs, and they're really big advocates for that belief system. And so they like to almost campaign or push that belief out into the marketplace or into the world because they have deeply held beliefs. They're viewed very childlike on the surface. And a lot of people don't realize this, but they are really deep. One of the deepest types, even though they come across like they love rainbows and unicorns and sunshine. A lot of them will dye their hair an interesting color, and they love to connect with people. And so those are ENFPs. So, one of my daughters is ENFP. Another really interesting type is the counselor type, and they're the INFJ. They're an interesting hybrid between the introvert and extroverted types, in between thinkers and feelers. They have a J, but they're a feeler. They're intuition. So INFJs often end up being counselors. They are calming presences in an organization. They tend to be therapists, counselors. INFJs they can be also very adaptable, but INFJs tend to be very focused on, they ruminate a lot because they're feelers. They overthink everything, and they think about a lot of things. A lot of people talk about the INFJ door slam. INFJs, once they decide they don't like a person or they cut somebody off, they do a door slam and they will cut that person off for life a lot of times. So INFJs also, I find, tend to attract narcissists or believe everybody out there is a narcissist. So INFJs, because they have such a sensitive, intuitive feeling nature, but they're also judging, and they can be very, very judgmental. INFJs tend to be one of the most judgmental types towards other types, and they have a lot of judgments towards other types, but they also use that intuition to kind of feel out people, and they're very feeling oriented. So they don't like when the world doesn't look, they're idealist in some ways, and they don't like when the world doesn't look a certain way, and they're very intuitive, feeling oriented. So INFJs can make really great counselors, therapists, type of personality types, and social workers, stuff like this, where they're interacting with people on a one-on-one, intimate, deep basis. And those are INFJs. And so a lot of times they'll attract people that are narcissists, or they will view others as narcissists because they are sometimes self-depreciating or allow their needs to kind of be subservient to others in some instances until they really become healthier and learn effective boundary setting. I find in INFJ groups on Facebook and whatever, they complain about a lot of different people about being narcissists. I don't believe that everybody out there that they think is a narcissist or is self-absorbed or selfish. I think that they just aren't really good at attracting good people and setting healthy boundaries. And then they view all these people as the bad guy. So a typical scenario in less healthy INFJs, or less evolved or less mature. So, let's see. What are other types? ESFJ. So the ESFJ, they are they're the entertainer personality type. So you've got people that would maybe dance on a tabletop or dance on a bar at a place. They are the most extreme, I think, of the extroverts. ENFJs. No. E ES ESFJs. These are sensors. They're very focused on their physical senses. They're very extroverted. They love hugs and touch and like being super extroverted, very feeler oriented. And I did that wrong. I'm writing these down so I get these right. So let me go back. The entertainer personality type. So the entertainer personality type is the ESFP. They're very open-minded, very feeler-oriented, very touch and sensor and senses-oriented and extroverted. ESFPs, they're a lot of fun, sometimes a little bit too much fun. They're the ones that'll be dancing on the tabletop. They need to be the center of attention at all times. If there is a group and it's heightened and people are extroverted and getting attention, they will find a way to get more attention and get more extreme. So they will dance on the tabletop. They will like get everybody to pay attention to them. They will do things. They will be in charge of like getting the most attention sometimes. These ESFPs, they're the entertainer personality type. I sometimes joke that they are um, the 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 uh, the NSFW types, not safe for work. In fact, I saw a meme once. It had all these hats, 16 hats with all the different types, and one hat was missing. And the person was putting on it said, not safe for work. The one that was missing was the ESFP, which I thought was funny. So they can be kind of a little bit, extreme. And, you know, yeah. So, ESFJs, which I mentioned before, ESFJs are a bit more on the judging side. They're very practical because they're sensors. They're also feelers, but they're judging. And so, ESFJs and ISFJs are very feeler oriented. ISFJs are more on the introverted side. So ISFJs are very supportive people. They do not want to be in the foreground. ISFJs are the people that want to at the party not be involved at the party. They're not going to be on the tabletop. ISFJs are those that love being in a supportive role. Putting them into a leadership role is usually a very bad idea. It's very uncomfortable for them. They often are nurses. They often are caretakers. They often are great internal office staff. They like to they have amazing memories. ISFJs have amazing memories. So do INTJs, but ISFJs have really great memories. They remember numbers, they remember details because they're watching everything and they want to make sure everybody's taken care of, everybody's happy. ISFJs often care more about other people than they do about themselves. And they expect everybody else to reciprocate, and nobody ever will reciprocate at the level that they care and give to others. So they often feel sad or down that nobody cares for them the way that they want to be cared for and the way they care for everybody else. That expectation that people will reciprocate is never at the level that they care. They're baking cakes for people, they're doing things for people, they're serving other people. Those are ISFJs, and they are great people to have as a support mechanism in a background support staff in a business. ESFJs are a little bit more like them, but they're a little bit more extroverted. They have better boundaries. They are, they might be willing, they're more willing to be in the foreground a bit. And they are also, can be really good, taking care of people, but they're sensors. So they're focused on the practical things. And then we've got ENFJs, which are similar. ENFJs are very extroverted intuition. They're great at being leaders of a community. They're really good at knowing who in the group is having a good time, who is not. I generally look for maybe like an ENFJ or ESFJ or somebody like that that's really organized to be a client success manager, to take care of and love on our clients and make sure everybody's being dealt with. And, because that extroverted intuition, they're able to perceive intuitively how everybody is receiving things, how they're doing, and they're feelers. So they care primarily about making sure everybody is having a good experience or feeling good about things. And they're detail oriented because of that J, and they make sure things get done. So I think I've covered several different types. What else could I cover? INFP. INFPs are interesting. These are some of the most woo-woo of all the types. It's the most open-minded. They're introverted, intuitive, feelers that are perceiving. These are people that usually I find they wear flowy clothing and they're very woo-woo and they're into all sorts of different ideas that are really sometimes out there. And they are not great at practical real world reality. That's a difficult thing for them. And so you'll find that a lot of people in spiritual new agey things, a lot of them might be INFPs. Um, I would not choose an INFP in my business to do anything that was like deadlines and timelines and getting things done efficiently. but they would be very good at like being very spiritual and intuitive and supporting clients through a process and stuff like that. INFPs are feelers. They have introverted intuition, so they are really focused on intuitively on themselves a lot, and they go deep within and their processes, and then they pull everything in from the universe, and they're just so open-minded. Sometimes me being a bit more, on the thinker side, feel like they're so open-minded, maybe their brains have fallen out, right? But INFPs have their place in there, also can be really, really useful. So a little different than the INFJ, which I talked about before, which is the counselor type, which are a bit more on the judging side and making sure things get done, which balances out all that intuition and intuitive internal stuff and introverted stuff and all that feeling. So INFPs, everything's based on a feeling. I feel this way because intuitively I feel like this is a good idea, or emotionally I feel like this is a good idea. So they're very feeling based. And so it's very difficult for somebody like an INTJ or somebody like an ENTJ to deal with those people sometimes because they're just too open-minded, or S types sometimes might find them difficult. So those are several different types. I can't think of any other of the 16 types that I might have missed, but one quick hack for anyone: once you get your Myers-Briggs type, or you get your team member's Myers-Briggs type, I recommend that you don't listen to what I just said. You go and do a YouTube search on YouTube for that type. Put ENTP or ISFJ or ESFP or INFP. Put the 4 letters and then put in, and then minutes. Write the word minutes on YouTube, and you'll get these great cartoon explainer videos that some organizations have put out, which they'll show like ENTP in 4 minutes or INTJ in 5 minutes or something. And these really succinct videos where it really describes for 4 to 5 minutes that personality type in detail, and even showing visual examples, and it really makes it clear whether or not you can watch that and go, is that really me? So if you do the 16 personalities test and you see any attributes that are close to 50%, it's like 53%, 54, it might be a mistype. If so, on thinker versus feeler, if the thinker says 53%, you might actually be a feeler. It might be a mistype. So you can go check out ENTP and ENFP in minutes and watch these videos and see which one really speaks to me. Because any one attribute creates a completely different personality type and a different way of approaching the world. Even if that one there, it's very similar to the other type, they have a very different cognitive stack and order in which they process information and do things, right? Whether they're extroverted or introverted, or whether they're sensor or intuitive, or whether they're a thinker or a feeler, they have a different stack and order of what those priorities are as to how they approach the world. So watch those videos, and that will help you also. You can use those videos, those, Myers-Briggs, the 4 letters in minutes. You can use those videos to then get clarity on your team member and why you may have had frustrations or difficulties or challenges. Once you're aware of your type and aware of their type, you'll be able to better assess, how can I better relate to them or communicate with them, or why are they the best personality fit for this role. And if you watch that video and you're like, I do not want this person as my operator, they shouldn't be your operator. Or I want this person as my client success manager, they could be your client success manager. And so that will help you assess whether they are the right personality fit for the role that you have them in. So I recommend you assess yourself and assess all your team. And I hope this was a really helpful deep dive into Myers-Briggs. And as with anything, figure out the personality type, reflect it back to them, ask them questions to see, is this really you? This is what this kind of says about you, and see if they give what feedback they give you. Because really, when you want to get to know a team member or a person, it's really about getting to know them. So just use this as a lens and as a tool for feedback, and throw those things out at them, those noodles at the wall, and see which ones stick, so that you get a clear picture and they mirror back to you or reflect back to you, yes, that's true, or no, that's not really accurate for me. I think I'm more this way. And this will give you a much clearer picture of their personality and whether or not they're a good fit for the role or position. So I hope this is helpful for everybody. Until next time, to our mutual growth. Bye, everyone.